Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories. Israel says it will resume the ceasefire after Gaza strikes, and Trump insists the truce still holds. A cargo plane slides off a runway in Hong Kong, killing 2 people. And South Korea prepares to host the high-stakes Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit amid tariff tensions. Fighting has flared again in Gaza despite a ceasefire that's been in place since the 11th of October. Israel launched a wave of airstrikes after accusing Hamas of killing 2 of its soldiers, while Hamas denies any involvement.
Israel carried out a series of strikes across Gaza on Sunday after it accused Hamas of carrying out an attack that killed 2 IDF soldiers. According to data from Gaza's hospitals, Israeli strikes killed at least 44 people in several parts of Gaza. The airstrikes marked the most serious breach since the truce began on October 11th. Israel accused Hamas of multiple violations, including a rocket-propelled grenade and sniper attack. Hamas denied the claims, saying it remained committed to the ceasefire and had no contact with local armed groups in Rafah. The renewed violence casts doubt on the 20-point peace plan brokered by US President Donald Trump, which aimed to end the war. Trump, however, insists the ceasefire remains in effect.
We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas, and as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. Some rebels within, but either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
The Israeli military has said it will resume enforcement of the ceasefire in Gaza after launching airstrikes. Amid the renewed strikes, Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt remains closed, deepening the humanitarian crisis.
The World Food Programme has reopened bakeries in Gaza in an effort to address widespread malnutrition. The agency says these efforts were made possible by the allowance of aid to reach the war-torn area.
A bakery in the Gazan city of Deir al-Bala has come back to life just a day after aid reached the bomb-ravaged area. It is one of 9 World Food Programme bakeries now up and running. The United Nations says it aims to open 30 more bakeries now that ingredients are accessible.
They are now pumping out 300,000 pieces of bread every single day, and that's because we can now get the flour, the sugar, the yeast in, but also importantly, the fuel that actually motors these machines. And it just demonstrates that when a ceasefire holds, we can really quickly rebuild. We can get the food production working again. And this is going to head off the starvation that we've seen by opening up these bakeries, these kitchens, by pumping out food at this level. We want to get 1 million meals out there every day, and we're on track to do that.
While the bakery in Deir al-Bala is operating thanks to incoming aid, the UN says its convoys are struggling to reach famine-hit areas of northern Gaza because of war-damaged roads and the continued closure of key routes. On average, around 560 metric tons of food have entered the Gaza Strip each day since the US brokered halt to 2 years of devastating war. But the World Food Programme says this is still far below the scale of need. Thousands of aid vehicles would have to enter weekly to address widespread malnutrition, homelessness, and the collapse of infrastructure in the Gaza City region.
2 airport security staff were killed when a Boeing 747 cargo plane from Dubai skidded off the runway at Hong Kong International Airport and plunged into the sea. Officials said the Air Act aircraft operating on behalf of Emirates veered off the north runway after landing and struck a security patrol vehicle, pushing it into the water. Both officers were rescued but later confirmed dead, one at the scene and the other in hospital. All 4 crew members on board survived. Authorities are investigating factors including weather, runway conditions and aircraft performance. The crash is Hong Kong's deadliest airport incident since 1999. And now over to Europe. Thieves have pulled off a daring daylight robbery at Paris' Louvre Museum, escaping with priceless 19th century crown jewels in a meticulously planned operation that lasted less than 7 minutes.
Sunday's audacious heist saw thieves break into Paris's Louvre Museum and steal crown jewels of inestimable value in a lightning-fast professional operation that lasted less than 7 minutes. 4 masked suspects used a vehicle-mounted lift to reach a first-floor window of the Gallery of Apollo, the grand hall housing France's royal jewels, shortly after the museum opened. They cut through glass panes with power tools, smashed display cases and fled on scooters before police arrived. No one was injured. Among the 8 stolen items were diadems, necklaces, earrings and brooches once belonging to French royalty, including Empress Eugénie, Empress Marie-Louise and Queen Marie-Amélie. Culture Minister Rachida Dati called the theft a very professional, organised operation. We came immediately, a couple of minutes after we received information of this robbery. To be completely honest, this operation lasted almost 4 minutes. It was very quick. We have to say that these are professionals. Organised crime today targets objects of art, and museums, of course, have become targets because France, as you know, is a country of heritage, a country with historical objects of heritage with great value. The Louvre, the world's most visited museum, was evacuated and closed for the rest of the day as police launched an investigation. President Emmanuel Macron condemned the robbery as an attack on our heritage, vowing that the jewels would be recovered and the culprits brought to justice. The high-profile heist has renewed scrutiny of the museum's security measures as staff have long warned of overcrowding, insufficient personnel and ageing infrastructure at the centuries-old landmark.
US Vice President J.D. Vance says President Donald Trump has not yet decided whether to supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, stressing that Washington's priority remains America's own security needs.
Well, I mean, the president right now is certainly hearing that request from the Ukrainians. We know that it's something that they want. That's something the president's going to ultimately decide, but he has not yet made the decision to give Tomahawks to Ukraine. Look, the president of the United States is trying to ensure that America's security is taken care of first, and obviously that means that we need to have the critical weapon systems for our own military, for our own troops. So that's what the president is focused on.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday Kyiv is now striking Russian oil refineries nearly every day. He added that the strikes are intended to bring Russia back to reality. Speaking in his nightly address, Zelensky said Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities have significantly improved, both in distance and accuracy. Ukrainian President also said Kyiv is discussing new energy and infrastructure projects with Washington, including gas and nuclear power corporation. Zelensky also outlined ongoing talks with European partners, saying Ukraine is working to strengthen joint pressure on Russia. The US military has struck a drug smuggling vessel in the Caribbean, killing 3 people believed to be linked to a Colombian guerrilla group. The incident, confirmed by Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth, marks a new phase in Washington's intensified efforts against narco-terrorism networks operating in the region. Speaking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews, Vice President J.D. Vance said US authorities handle survivors of such strikes on a case-by-case basis, including options for repatriation or prosecution.
Our main focus is obviously to blow up these boats that have narcotics on them, and we're extremely confident that when we take out one of these boats, it's a boat that would have really terrible poison that would kill tens of thousands of Americans. When these actual boats get blown up, sometimes there are survivors, And I think the Secretary of State just makes a decision depending on what the scenario is, whether we're going to send them back home, whether we're going to prosecute them in the United States, or whether we're going to work with allies to bring them to justice. But we're certain these guys are narco-terrorists. What we do with them from there, just as with any other conflict, depends on the realities on the
Bolivia has witnessed a historic shift in its presidential election. Rodrigo Paz emerged victorious, ending nearly 20 years of rule by the movement for socialism and bringing renewed hope to a country grappling with a deepening economic crisis. He is set to assume office on the 8th of November.
In Bolivia's presidential election, Rodrigo Paz emerged victorious. Amid the country's most severe economic crisis in decades, he secured 54.5% of the vote, defeating his rival Jorge Tuto Quiroga. Following the announcement of the results, thousands of supporters took to the streets in the capital La Paz and in Tarija to celebrate.
Today, the people have triumphed, the humble people, the working people. Here, as you can see, this is the will of a people, of a hard-working, fighting country that goes against the polls, that goes against capitalism, that goes against all private enterprises. Today, the will of a country, of a people who are tired of a government that was also socialist, has won. From now on, a new milestone in history is set, with a new generation of young professionals who want to, and have the will to, change this country.
With hope, after 20 years under a EMAS regime, our country is born again, reborn, for a good future, for a new change and a future for our children, for young people, and for those women who had lost hope, for professional women and mothers who had lost faith that their children would ever have.
Paz previously served as mayor of Tarija and has represented the region in the Senate since 2020. Paz's victory marks an end to the rule of the movement for socialism, which had governed Bolivia almost continuously since 2006. The winning candidate represents the Christian Democratic Party, but his party does not hold a majority in the legislature, meaning he will need to form coalitions with other political forces to govern effectively.
Starting November 8th, Bolivia will no longer face fuel shortages. With the support of partner nations we've engaged, every step we've taken has been in service of the Bolivian people. Our goal is to establish a stable government and begin the transformative changes that lie ahead.
The 58-year-old senator also called on all political forces to work together.
The homeland has allowed us to stay for another round, and in the second round, we repeated to exhaustion that if the Bolivian people didn't elect us, we would extend our hand in support to the winner. Today, from a place of victory, we extend that same hand to govern alongside all men and women who love the homeland.
Paz's victory comes against the backdrop of Bolivia's deepening economic crisis in recent years. The country's natural gas exports have sharply declined. Inflation has reached a 40-year high, and fuel shortages have made daily life difficult. During his election campaign, the new president unveiled a $1.5 billion economic cooperation plan with US officials, aimed at stabilizing the country's energy supply and boosting economic recovery.
In South Korea, preparations are in full swing for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in the historic city of Gyeongju. Scheduled for the 31st of October, the meeting is already drawing attention not only for its economic agenda, but for the potential face-to-face between US President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping, and possible outreach to North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
Preparations are in full swing in South Korea for the upcoming Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, a two-day gathering of world leaders set to begin on the 31st of October in the historic city of Gyeongju. The gathering comes amid renewed trade tensions between Washington and Beijing. President Donald Trump has threatened to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese imports unless Beijing lifts new restrictions on critical minerals, a move analysts say could reshape the region's economic landscape. APEC, which brings together 21 economies from across the Pacific Rim, traditionally focuses on trade liberalization, innovation, and sustainable growth. This year's theme, Connect, Innovate, Prosper, reflects South Korea's call for cooperation despite widening global divides.
Because there is such a siege really going on from the Trump administration in terms of withdrawing from multilateral forums like APEC, this has really heightened the importance of this effort to bring together leaders from around the Asia Pacific and to focus on kind of the old agenda of, economic globalization, of free trade. This is the classic APEC agenda. And so I think we could see drama that APEC is not used to.
Analysts say Trump's presence could bring both tension and attention. His America First approach has unsettled allies dependent on stable trade flows between the world's two largest economies.
You see many of the allies sort of caught in a trap where they both want the U.S. and China to come to some kind of deal, but they're all very concerned about their exposure to the consequences of that deal, because I think the general perception is Donald Trump, the Trump administration in Washington, is out for itself. It is America first.
Observers also note China's growing trade pressure on South Korean firms, seen as part of a wider rivalry spilling into regional markets. South Korea, as host, hopes the summit will reinforce its image as a bridge between Washington and Beijing, positioning Gyeongju as a hub for dialogue rather than division. Speculation is mounting that Trump could revive dialogue with Kim Jong-un during his Asia visit. Their last meeting at the demilitarized zone took place near Gyeongju, and another surprise encounter can't be ruled out. Hosting APEC 2025 gives South Korea a chance to act as a bridge between rival powers set to welcome leaders, CEOs, and media from across the Pacific. Whether this year's summit leads to renewed dialogue or deeper divisions, its outcome will be closely watched well beyond Asia.
Madagascar's Gen Z say they want a real say in the country's future. The youth movement is pushing back against being sidelined after protests ousted the president.
After an elite army colonel joined Madagascar's Gen Z protests earlier this month, forcing the president to flee the country, the youth movement has expressed mixed feelings about the military's involvement. Protests that began over electricity and water shortages quickly morphed into an uprising against then-President Andry Rajoelina. Days later, Colonel Michael Randrianirina was sworn in as the new leader. The movement Gen Z Collective, a coalition of several protest groups, has signalled frustration at being sidelined and insists on being part of the discussions to build a new political system.
For the moment, the process, we are not very happy on how things are done, because we feel a little bit sidelined on the first days. And what we really want to show is that we are not only here to be sidelined, and we are not here only for the protest and for being the muscles of the protest and for a new regime to take over. But we are here to be in the middle of the discussions, in the middle of the negotiations, and in the middle of the construction of the new political system.
Randrianirina has said the military will govern alongside a civilian administration for up to 2 years before organising new elections. Many wonder if the concerns of young people will be addressed or, as in the past, ignored.
They've met with us. They say they're ready to work with the youth. The only concern is that they shouldn't be influenced by outsiders, by the international community. So the same thing doesn't keep happening. We want Madagascar to be truly independent without anyone manipulating the military behind the scenes. Hopefully, they're really here to organise elections and set up a new system that can change life in Madagascar.
Madagascar's young population, with an average age of just 19, faces a litany of problems, largely caused by mismanagement from a succession of older leaders. Even Rajoelina, who at 34 became the world's youngest president after a 2009 coup, disappointed the youth by failing to deliver prosperity or basic services by the time he was ousted in his 50s. Since independence from France in 1960 until 2020, GDP per capita nearly halved, according to World Bank data, making Madagascar one of the few nations worse off over that period.
Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire during talks in Doha, following a week of fierce border clashes that marked the worst violence between the two countries since the Taliban seized power in Kabul in 2021. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Mohammad Asif announced the agreement in a social media post, stating that both countries will respect each other's territory. Delegations from both sides are set to meet on the 25th of October in Istanbul, with Qatar's foreign ministry saying the follow-up meetings aim to ensure the sustainability of the ceasefire and verify its implementation in a reliable and lasting manner. After the new ceasefire is announced between Pakistan and Afghanistan, many people in Pakistan hope tensions will calm. However, some remain doubtful.
After days of deadly clashes at the border, Pakistan and Afghanistan agreed to a new ceasefire on Sunday, aimed at easing tensions and restoring calm. The move was welcomed by many in Pakistan.
This is a very positive and welcome development because we had been witnessing tension between the two countries for quite some time, and Pakistan had also given a strong response to Afghanistan. Recently, we saw that Pakistani and Afghan officials met in Qatar, in which a ceasefire was announced. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif was also present there.
Look, the peace agreement between Pakistan and Afghanistan is a good development. We are neighbouring Muslim countries and we should live together in harmony. If tensions arise, both nations will suffer losses. Pakistan does not want to create conflict with a fellow Muslim country or worsen the situation.
However, some residents voiced a different perspective, expressing scepticism about the ceasefire.
The Afghans who have been with us are very bad. They have made us do everything. I have been in Rawalpindi since 1992, and there was a lot of peace before. Since the children of Afghans arrived and grew up, they have started robberies, thefts, and idolatry. They have created many problems for us. As Muslims, we treat them like our brothers, but they are the ones who speak the word.
The two sides are expected to hold follow-up talks in Istanbul on October 25th to work out the details of the ceasefire.
European foreign ministers are gathering in Luxembourg on Monday for a high-level meeting of the European Council focused on inter-regional security and connectivity. The talks will bring together EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Kaja Kallas, EU Commissioner for Enlargement Mate Kos and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, alongside representatives from Azerbaijan, Armenia, Moldova, Ukraine and Central Asian states. Ministers are expected to discuss a new sanctions package against Moscow, the ongoing war in Ukraine, the strategic importance of the Black Sea, developments in the Middle East, and broader regional security challenges. The second meeting of Azerbaijan-Kazakhstan Supreme Interstate Council will be held in Astana, President Ilham Aliyev said during an interview with Kazinform news agency. This comes as both nations aim to strengthen their strategic partnership. According to reports ahead of the visit, discussions will focus on expanding mutually beneficial cooperation and exploring new areas of collaboration. The first meeting of the Council was held last year in Baku. Now, staying on these two countries, both are strengthening their long-standing partnership from trade and transport to energy and cultural exchange. Built on shared history and trust, the two Caspian nations have signed more than 160 agreements, turning decades of friendship into a solid strategic alliance.
Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are deepening a dynamic partnership rooted in shared language, culture, and long-standing trust. Since establishing diplomatic ties in 1992, the two nations have grown from friendly neighbors into strategic allies. Regular meetings between President Ilham Aliyev and President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev have turned political dialogue into concrete results, from energy cooperation to transport and digital trade. In just the past 2 years, the two leaders have met more than 5 times at major summits, from the Organization of Turkic States to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Economic ties are expanding fast. Trade turnover reached $314 million in 2023, up almost 120% from 2020. Energy, logistics, and agriculture drive the exchange, while both sides work to boost cargo through the Middle Corridor, connecting Asia to Europe via Baku and Aktau ports. The partnership rests on a strong legal foundation, 163 agreements signed, including landmark declarations on strategic alliance and mutual cooperation dating back to 2004, 2005 and 2022. With expanding trade, shared projects and deep political trust, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are shaping the Caspian into a corridor of stability, energy and unity across the Turkic world.
And now let's take a look at the world of sport. We're joined by our very own Nick Summerby, live from Doha, to break down a big weekend of action and preview what's coming up. We'll start with the high-octane thrills from the Formula One race in Austin, then shift gears to the return of the Premier League and the broader world of European football. After looking back at what happened, we'll look ahead to keep an eye on this week. Nick, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, the Formula One race in Austin, Texas took place this weekend. What happened, who stood out, and what were the key takeaways?
Well, we have 5 races to go. Verstappen, who won the race, he's won 3 out of 4 races. He's come from nowhere, basically. We thought he's not involved in the championship this year. He is now. It's down to 40 points. And our attention as well was with Lando Norris. Could Lando Norris put pressure on his teammate Piastri? They crashed in the sprint race. You know, he really is driving dangerously because he wants to win it. He managed to beat Leclerc to get second place. It's down to 14 points. My only worry there with the McLaren team is the competition is really getting edgy. And I just think at the end, with them thrashing it out, I just think Verstappen is looking at it with 5 to go, 40 points away. He can do it. I mean, you're looking at the champion who's just come off really from winning it last season and 3 before that. This is getting very exciting. You've got to watch it because there's the fight from Lando Norris and obviously Verstappen with the quality what he's got. It goes all the way through to Abu Dhabi at the end. It's a must watch. In 2 weeks' time, we go to Mexico. You've got to watch it because I tell you at the moment it is electrifying.
Okay, and the Premier League is back. Nick, what's the latest news from the opening weekend? Any surprises or standout performances there?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start off with Ange Postecoglou. He got fired the first game of the weekend, which was Nottingham Forest against Chelsea. Chelsea won 3-0. 25 minutes at the end of the game, he was fired. He's only been in the job for 3 months. You think of the highs of last season with Nottingham Forest to where they are now. They're in the relegation zone, so they're looking at new managers at the moment. Sean Dyche is one of them. But moving away from that, Brighton getting a victory. Manchester City, 2 goals for Haaland. And then all of a sudden Arsenal, it was down to them. What could they do? City looking for a certain amount of period to be top of the league. Then Arsenal got that 1-0 victory at Fulham and put them top. Going away from that as well then is Sunderland, 2-0 victory from them. The teams which came up last year are really putting a fight. Burnley beating Leeds. They both went up. They're both doing really well. Spurs, they got beat against Aston Villa. It went on to the big game, which was at Anfield. Manchester United, they haven't won for 10 years at Anfield. Could they do it? Liverpool They've lost 3 on the bounce. Well, they lost again. Arne Slot, who went in last year, did an unbelievable job, is all of a sudden under pressure. They paid a lot of money, they spent a lot of money, they brought a lot of big players in thinking it will take them to the next level. It wasn't at all. Manchester United, a dogged, organised performance. Maybe this is the turning point for Amram, but 2-1 Manchester United. We've got tonight as well West Ham, Brentford, but what would you say? Great result for Arsenal to be top of the pile. Manchester City putting pressure on. Liverpool struggling, and obviously Manchester United a big result. So a lot happening in the Premier League.
Okay, and turning to football across Europe, what interesting games, storylines or developments are happening beyond England?
Well, Marseille are top of the league, really hitting form at the moment. Paris Saint-Germain aren't. 3-3 with Strasbourg. Strasbourg are now third. Paris Saint-Germain have drawn 2 and lost 1. That's very unlike Paris Saint-Germain. We saw them winning the European Cup last year, and we know domestically how strong they are. Maybe it's going to be Marseille's turn this year. Usually it's a bit of a format, and it's all about Paris Saint-Germain, but it's starting to heat up. Barcelona getting the victory just about. Hansi Flick, who got given a red card. Next weekend is the El Clasico, Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Real Madrid getting the victory as well with the only goal from Mbappe. Moving away from that, Napoli getting beat. So the top of the pile there in Italy is Inter Milan against, obviously, beat Roma. Then gone away from that, Bayern Munich winning 2-1. Kane and Elise in a huge game against Dortmund. Leipzig winning as well 2-1. So possibly the only shocks out of those there is Napoli getting beat, and obviously Paris Saint-Germain dropping points, which is not used to seeing that.
Okay, and lastly, Nick, looking ahead into the week, what should fans be watching out for? Any upcoming races, matches, storylines or potential turning points?
Well, it's Champions League and it's exciting with the new format which was brought in last year. Do I like it? I do, because we get big games. And if you're a big fan of football, especially in Azerbaijan, Qarabağ are playing again. They are flying the flag. They've won their 2 games, beating Benfica and Copenhagen. They play Athletic Club, so that's a mouth-watering game. And you've got to say, it's unbelievable the form what they've showed. They still have a lot of work to do, but they will be a team now where all of a sudden teams will raise their game, so we wish them all the very best. You've got Real Madrid, Juventus, Arsenal, Atletico, Villarreal, City. You've got the full, it's over 3 days, so some really exciting games coming up there. And as I said, no Formula 1 next weekend, but the weekend after that, I'm intrigued by it. Got to tell you, I am intrigued by that. At the moment, I just keep looking at that Formula 1. That's the one. I told you, keep your eye on it.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for the roundup there. And that's your news update for this morning from all of us in the studio. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.